very devastating night. I was 6 years old at that time. I remember it very vividly of what happened that night. My father just had got home from work from Lexington. I remember he was sitting at the table eating his supper, and we had the local radio station on, and it was on WHIR. And I do remember the song that was playing on the radio. It was John Denver's "Sunshine on My Shoulders." Makes me happy. Mm-hmm. It got broke into with a bulletin that a tornado was heading toward Junction City. So I remember my father jumped up, and of course, me being 6 years old, we went out into the front yard and looked to the east, and there was the tornado to the east of Junction City, which hit the Texas Eastern gas transmission station. And my father, we all ran back in the house, and we ran around and was looking for my cowboy boots, of all things, because I didn't have no shoes on. And we scrambled around and couldn't find them, so everybody gathered in the car and was backing out the driveway. And I remember saying to my dad, I said, "What about my dog? What about my dog? He'll be okay. He'll be okay." And I remember we went to my aunt's house out on Cream Ridge in that is in the kind of the western part of Bull County, toward the Forkland community area, toward that direction. And we got there and we crossed the L&N railroad tracks there in White Oak. And I remember my father was screaming at people going into Junction, and he would scream at them, "Go the other way, go the other way." He said, "There's a tornado coming, tornado." And I remember as we crossed the tracks, the Louisville and Nashville engineers were stopped at the crossing, and they was standing out in front of the engine and was looking to the east. And I remember I was in the back window of the 71 Chevrolet, and I looked out the back window and I seen the tornado, and it was a grayish black, and I seen a few lightning bolts come out of the side of it. And I remember we got about 3 or 4 miles out of Junction, and I remember the sun come out.
So what? Whenever you all sought shelter that evening there in Danville, again, if you've just joined us, we are remembering and reflecting upon the 1974 April 3rd tornado, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that throughout the evening. So once you saw that the tornado, was it on the ground at that point, and how close did it come to impacting where you were?
It was probably about a mile and a half, 2 miles away from where I was at, actually. It hit the Texas Eastern gas transmission plant, and there was a fellow that lived in a home that was near that. It ended up killing him, and it hit a chicken farm called Chandler's Egg Farm and destroyed it also. And this tornado started in, I think it was the eastern part of Casey County, and made its way through Moreland, Kentucky, and then it traveled up into the eastern side of Junction City.
In the dollar amounts today, it's estimated that the tornado of April 3rd, 74 would probably do around $7 billion in damage. It was catastrophic damage. It killed 148 people, or 319 people, and there was 148 tornadoes that night, and it was injured. There was injuries of 5,484 known injured in the tornado as it came through. And Keith, anything else you want to add about your memories of that horrible night?
Well, as I remember, as we got to my aunt's house, we stayed there till probably about, I think it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then my mother and father decided to go back home. And on the way and then through the whole night, it stormed horribly bad all night long. And then I remember the next day we went into Mercer County and seen quite a bit of destruction as we drove around the next day to take a look at everything.
It was absolutely a horrible night with so many thoughts and memories people have of that evening. And one of the things that I recall is the day of the tornado, during the day, of how green the sky looked. And such a horrible feeling that we had. My mom and dad, I remember, put us on a mattress in the basement of our house. And I was fortunate not to be in the same situation that Keith was in. But I remember watching the funnel clouds go in front of our home, a county away. You could see the low-lying clouds, and we were listening to Welby Hoover on WJRS radio. And I recall our basement being full of people in the community, and even some folks left at the worst part of the storm. And I also remember, and I will agree with Keith, how it stormed not only maybe 7 o'clock or so whenever you saw it, was it 7 or maybe 8 o'clock? But I know it continued on throughout the remaining part of the night. The thunder was horrific, and the lightning was constant, and it was just one storm after another that came through. And even people that was in our basement, some of them left at the worst part of the storm. We had several people in the neighborhood that came to our basement. And I remember that very well, very vivid. And the static on the radio was constant. And this storm here is the reason that there is a Storm Alert Center. And Keith, I think that spawned your interest in weather. So we kind of have a brotherhood of being there for the people. And that started a long, long time ago. And it was just a little over 10 years after that, May of 1984, that I sat behind the microphone for the very first time, helping out with severe weather as we had a storm move through that lasted 3 days. We had tornadoes, flooding, high winds, and all kinds of problems. But getting back to the April 3rd, 74 tornado, I've told my story many times. And one of the most, I guess the most exciting times that I've been able to tell this story is several years ago. I was on CNN Live with Frederica Whitfield of CNN, and we were able to talk a little bit about the tornado and what I recall, and that was several years ago. I forget what anniversary it was, but I was on Shoreline Communication, and they bought me a shirt and tie for the occasion, and I went to Lexington, and they did a video uplink to the CNN headquarters, and that's where we did our interview live on television. It was on a Sunday morning, and we had a lot of people get up at the crack of dawn to be able to listen to this. And it's a lot of things have changed from the time that we have been involved in this and everything. We show some pictures. This is something that Keith and me only came up with less than an hour ago to do a live broadcast and to share our memories and our history of what we recall. And of course, we sit in front of large TV screens and do the radars and see all the information. But back in the day, all they had was this type of radar. And the size of it was probably about as big as a large baking tray or the rack of your oven. It wasn't very big at all, and that is what they used to bring information. And one of the things, Keith, and I'm going to let you talk to and reflect. We've all seen the videos of Dick Gilbert with 84 WHAS, flying across near the fairgrounds in Louisville, and this is what he saw. Can you imagine being in a helicopter and seeing this monster come towards you?
That would be quite scary and amazing to see something like that up in a helicopter, especially.
Well, and he, I think he had somehow in his regular broadcast, he had a daughter that he would fly over every day or something related to that. There's a story behind that, and I'll try to look that up and remember it. But Dick Gilbert was a master when it came to that, and those audio recordings of him reporting back to the station they are classic memorabilia of a time many wish to forget. But we can't forget. We have to continue to remember and to be thankful that we have not had the same thing happen here in our community in Russell County. Of course, April 27th is another anniversary, and that is when the storms hit the Salem community. It started over in Adair County, around Mount Pleasant, in that region, tracked all the way across Beckham Ridge, Bottom Road, and 127, and into the Fairview community, Salem, the Irvin store, and later the Goss Ridge community. Several people lost their lives, and that also left a tremendous impact on the community. We were about a mile to a half mile away from where the tornado hit in 71. And that began, people had just kind of recovered from the May 33 tornado. And then you had the 71 tornado that came through, and now the anniversary of what we're talking about, the 1974 April 3rd event. 49 years ago tonight, people's lives were being lost, people's lives were being changed, and I guess it's impacted me for life because this is where I am in the middle of my weather studio. Behind me is a map. Behind us is a map on the wall that shows all the tracks of the 1974 tornado. It was all put together by Dr. Fajita, who created the F scale, which was later revised into the EF scale, the enhanced Fajita scale. But that shows all the tornadoes that touched down. And it was a horrible night. Anything you want to add to this? Because I have a few more things to talk about.
It was just something that I can see. I'm 55 years old now, and I can see that in my mind, that tornado that evening is just burnt into my mind, and I can see it like it happened 49 years ago to the day. I mean, I can see it in my mind. I mean, it was and it just affected me, and that's why I do, like you said, it affected you to where, I've been a weather spotter for 35 years, and that's just, I try to, help people to where they don't get caught up in that same situation that I do, to try to help the community with this that goes on, sometime or another.
Well, a lot of people, they fail to realize the importance of meteorology and the things that we do and how serious we take it. I think that there's a select few maybe that thinks it's maybe a joke, or we're just doing it for whatever. But my intentions are, when a tornado comes through our area the way that it did it in 1974, 49 years ago, whenever that happens again, I want to be able to say that we were a vital part in life preservation, and that everybody would go to their safe place, that we would know, that we would go on record as being a benevolent part of weather, a caring part of weather, if you don't know what benevolence means, a caring part of weather and a caring part of our community. And tonight, as we reflect, I've been busy all day with doing some drone flying and some damage surveys over in Adair County, so it really hadn't set in until Keith had messaged me, and he says, "What are you doing?" And I think it was like he was just kind of blah. Yeah. And it was like he's typed in April 3rd, 1974, and I thought, I'm going to write out a little story and put a couple of pictures on and let that be it. And Keith said, well, we went live last time. I think Keith was wanting to be on the TV tonight. But on a serious note, I thought, why not go on and tell our story and give people a chance to reflect a little bit on an event that changed a lot of people's lives. And being involved in weather all of these years, I have talked with meteorologists, TV people, and a lot of individuals who are into weather who say it was the April 3rd, 1974 tornado that affected them as a kid, and they went on and made that a lifetime profession. And of course, it's kind of an unpaid thing here, but it is a lifetime obsession of mine. I mean, I love weather. I don't want anybody to be in a tornado, and I'm not wanting one to hit. But when and if it does, I want to be front and center. I want to be right there in the middle, trying to help people and to warn them of this of the event. Keith?
I agree with the same thing. You know, that's what we're here to do, is to make sure our community is safe, and our communities around, you know, our county that we live in. We're here to protect and serve the people. It's not about the fame. It's not about all this. It's about protecting people, because it's something that I just about could have died from back in 1974. It was that close, and that's why we're here to do what we're here to do.
Well, February of 2012 is a night or an afternoon that I will never forget as long as I live. I can kind of laugh about it now. But I'd been on the radio for all those years, sitting in the studio. And the studios are, you know, the Storms are not respecters of studios.
No.
When I worked at WJRS, I was on the phone with Norm Reitmeyer. He was a warning coordinator meteorologist from the Weather Service. On the phone with him in the back office. And when I passed the front doors of the studio, it was a bright, sunny afternoon. And we had a radar that updated every 15 minutes, which now looking at that, I think it was pretty useless, but it had a nice color and we thought it was good. But I was on the phone with Norm that night or that afternoon, and we were talking briefly about what was happening, and he said, and I asked him something and he didn't respond. And I said, Norm, and I heard him mumble and talk a little bit to somebody else. I said, Norm, are you still there? And he says, Dan, I said, yes, Norm. Tornado warning for Jamestown immediately, hitting Fruit of the Loom. So I said, thank you, and I ran and got on the air and told everybody. This was before the weather radios ever went off. I said, we have a tornado warning, Fruit of the Loom, take shelter immediately. When I passed by the front door of the station, it was dark as it is outside right now. And the hail that hit the side of the building was phenomenal. It sounded like a war zone. It sounded like a bomb was going off. And I remember my good friend who still works in the newspaper business, Wade Daffrin. Wade Daffrin came in with a big handful of hail, probably marbles ball, or what is the little ball they kick, or they hit with a stick. A golf ball.
Golf ball size.
Had the golf ball sized hail. And he threw that in my lap. And I was like, I mean, this is it. I thought this is it. I thought the building was going to go over. But anyway, that was one event where the station, we had never seen anything much to impact, but we had that event. And then when I was at Shoreline Communication at the Wave, Jan Royce and me watched a rotating wall cloud go over the station. Our ears popped, and it went on up to Russell Springs and Windsor and did significant damage. Then one afternoon, I was on the radio. It was on a Sunday. A funnel cloud went over the station and went toward Casey County. Brad James at WTVQ in Lexington called me on the phone and says, what's going on with the weather? And I says, a funnel cloud is headed toward Casey County. He said, hold on a moment. He said, we'll go live and you can join me on weather. So I was on WTVQ live weather coverage with them. That was back several years ago. But whenever we take the seat to do this type of work, we take a chance on losing our own life. That's why I have a storm cellar. And I will go there. And Keith will join me if he's here, if we have to. But we also have kind of, probably not the best of communication lines, but here just very soon, we'll be able to broadcast from that hole in the ground. I mean, it will be pretty primitive. Probably won't be like you're hearing now, but whenever that hook echo, when that circulation starts to come here, we're going to a safe place.
Yep.
And that's what we want to tell people. And so it goes on. It goes on. After I left the Wave, I was in an EF2. Now, I told all of that to tell this. The one that hit at Poplar Grove. The one just a quarter mile from Keith's house. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go up and get the pictures and the video of everything, and I'll make $1 million as I sell that, and people's going to, give me a lot of money for that. So I make my way north very slowly, 15, 20 mile an hour. I saw it at Webb's Crossroads, and it had just hit the Edco Meadows, and I thought I would go up to Poplar Grove. If you're from Russell County, you know where that is probably. And when I turned into Poplar Grove, I made an immediate ride into the ditch line. And I had my phone out and my camera's up, ready to video. And about that time, basically all hell broke loose. There was debris, there was metal flying, there was pieces of wood, there was all kinds of stuff going on. And the tornado had left that northeast track and was headed more toward the east. Not a big change, not a big difference in the track, but enough that you say, hey, this thing is on top of me. It was an EF2. I watched the power poles fall all around me, and all the debris and everything that happened over at 76 at the trailer park. I saw all of that explode. The mobile homes, Keith, was like a confetti. Whenever
Yeah.
the storm hit it, it was like that, and it was confetti. And everything those people worked for was gone in a matter of seconds. And so that is my close encounter of being in an EF2 tornado. It was horrible. People said, "Where's your pictures and everything of that happening?" It was all about self-preservation.
Surviving that.
And I don't say this very much, but I said that was I thought I was gone. I mean, I thought that was the last of me because of
Yeah, because you was right over top of you.
of how bad it was. I mean, it went right through me, and I'll never forget that. But looking back on the April 3rd, 74 tornado, that's what we're remembering tonight. Keith, what would you tell people if you had to tell them anything about the 74 tornado and related to today? What would you tell them to do if we were faced with a similar situation, say tonight?
Well, technology, you kind of, went on that a little bit. Technology has come a long ways with having been informed of what's going on in your weather today than what it was then. But today, I would advise anybody to purchase a NOAA weather radio. Would be the first thing, line of defense. And then if you've got a cell phone or a landline phone, you can get Code Red installed on your phone that will alert you to impending weather. Another thing that I would encourage somebody to get would be the tornado alert. That's another thing to add to more of the defense with the NOAA weather radio that gives you more to have for safety.
Multiple ways.
Yes, I mean you've got the technologies there. You need to take heed. Buy you a weather radio. Get Code Red put on your cell phone, and get you a tornado alert like I've got. And Daniel's got one, and several people around here, and some people that's bought some out of state. Like one of my sisters got one, and it's a really good thing to have. That way, you stay safe because you don't want to go through. It's just like the video I seen day before yesterday where a tornado come through, and this one lady is hollering at a gentleman standing out in the parking lot watching this tornado come straight at them. So he comes in, and they stand at the door, at this glass door and glass windows, and just stand there and watch this tornado come and start destroying, and blows out the glass, and they're right there, and it's 1,000 wonders didn't kill them. The Lord had to have been with them.
Yeah.
But never stand in video or stand at a doorway or window and watch this thing come. Get to an interior room, get to the basement. Don't stand there and try to take video because it will kill you.
Well, and something too, of course, we are part of the Adair Weather Command and the Storm Spotting Network in Adair County. And the key word of that is storm spotters. And I do not advocate at all storm chasing in this area. I mean, I'll teach weather classes, and I always tell people that this is not about weather chasing and tornado chasing and storm chasing because of the terrain. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm just telling you not to do it. But I'm like you, Keith. People needs to have multiple ways of getting warnings and take those seriously. I know it gets old, probably going to the basement or whenever nothing happens. But our friends at the Weather Service, and I have several at the Louisville office that we communicate. They know who I am. They know who Keith is. They know who we are, and we can correspond with those people. And they're very intelligent people to have a meteorology degree. But even with their intelligence, the technology prevents them from seeing what's going on at the surface of the radar. And that is a huge problem. So therefore, many times we have warnings issued that don't turn out to be anything at all. And I'm not casting any type of negativity toward those people or anybody. It's just a fact of the technology. And hopefully someday that can change. We need a radar in this area, or somewhere close that will cover the dead spot. And so when there's a warning issued, a storm warning, tornado warning, continue to take action and do what is the right thing to do, and have a plan and practice it and know what's going to happen. But
that was like the other night, was it Friday night?
Friday night.
I was at my house and I was in my recliner, dead asleep. And, of course, I was already dressed to come up here because we knew the storms was getting ready to come through Bowling Green within about an hour or so before, I went to sleep. And we planned, when it got to Bowling Green, that we'd start broadcasting. Well, before that ever happened, just a few minutes, my weather radio woke me up with that sound. I'll never forget. And I jumped straight out of that recliner, jumped up, pushed the button on the weather radio, tornado watch.
Tornado watch.
I said, I've got to go. And that's exactly what I did. And I was here within about 6, 7, 8 minutes to the studio.
And we went ahead and stayed on for,
Yep.
I don't know, a couple hours maybe.
Yep.
But tonight we have been reflecting upon the April 3rd, 1974 tornado that went through a large part of Jefferson County, up in Xenia, Ohio, Brandenburg, up in Meade County. And those storms were deadly, as we mentioned earlier. In today's dollars, about $7 billion in damage. 148 tornadoes touched down that evening into the early morning hours. It killed 319 people, and over 5,000 people lost or were injured in that terrible tornado. Just a few pictures that I grabbed over the evening. Kind of a quick thing to do, but we wanted to have a little time to reflect upon this kind of a sad occasion, but it's also one that has changed a lot of people's lives in many ways. Some for the best, some for the worst. And I want to say one thing about people who are terrified of storms. That is a huge problem with me. Not to personally for that individual, but people will call me and they're frantic. And they're like, what are we going to do? It's going to get bad, please, what can we do? Well, I've got my kids and I don't have a basement. I live in a mobile home. It's okay to be afraid, but tornadoes in perspective to the earth are very, very small. And, if there's a tornado watch issued, just go to your safe place or be close to it. And then when you hear warnings issued out ahead of this, just ease down to where your shelter is. Don't wait till the last minute and try to go somewhere in a storm. That's just not the thing to do. But anyway, we could go on. We've been here for 35 minutes. I think probably, I don't know how many people's watching. I haven't checked. There may not be anybody watching, but nonetheless, we want to say thank you on behalf of the Storm Alert Center and all the things that we do. We want to say thank you all for your confidence and for following us. We're over 31,000 people strong. I never dreamed that, but we're here, and we're honored to be here, and we hope to always be able to be a vital part and a credible resource for weather in the Lake Cumberland and Green River area, Russell and the surrounding counties. Keith, anything you want to say in closing?
I just appreciate and thank everybody for watching and depending on us for your source of weather. And we will be broadcasting live if there's any severe weather. Either he'll be here or I will, either one.
All right, so on behalf of Keith Richardson and the Storm Alert Center, your weather authority in the Green River and Lake Cumberland area, Russell and the surrounding counties, tonight we have been reflecting upon the April 3rd, 1974 tornado outbreak. Thank you for listening, and God bless each and every one of you.